Hey, VA fam, it's your girl Mandy Money. I am so happy to be here with these two beautiful, exquisite, stunning, accomplished, badass women in the studio. We have never done a show like this, BA fam. And maybe it's because sometimes when you're in your relationship and like it's so challenging, sometimes talking about relationships is like the last thing you want to do. Um, but it just felt like the right time. Ever since I saw one of my guests today, ever since I saw the title of her book, How to Find True Love by Francesca Hogi, who's here with me today. That concept, the simplicity of the preposition, the simplicity of the concept for that book, it really struck me, and I was a little bit afraid to even ask myself that question while I am a full married woman. And BA fam, I know that we represent the broad spectrum of partnership, whether you are riding solo at this time, you're newly separated, you are looking for love, you're in a relationship and you know this ain't it, and you're planning your escape route. Like, I really wanted to have a show like this, so I asked Francesca to come on the show, and then I got the opportunity to also have the Michelle, the Kelly, I'm making myself Beyonce here. That's real rich. And we have Spicy Madi in the house. Spicy Madi is also a relationship expert, a relationship coach. You also host a Netflix show, which I'm blinking on right now. Please help the girls out.
Sneaky Links on Netflix.
Sneaky links. Ooh, a little messy. We love that. So I want to pause there and just have y'all do a quick little introduction to BA fam. I've already given them your name. Francesca, you got your book, How to Find True Love. Spicy Money, we're on Sneaky Links. But tell us a little bit about your journey to becoming relationship experts, and then what your approach is and what you love most about the work that you do. Francesca, do you want to start?
Sure. Thanks for that wonderful introduction, Beyonce. And you are Beyonce here. So, so for me, I used to be a corporate lawyer in my previous career, but I'm somebody who I call myself, I was a romantic child. Like I just grew up like really just wanting love, like wanting passion, like couldn't wait till I was like old enough to like fall in love and like I used to read like, romance novels that were way too old for me and I'd be like, I can't wait to do this. Um, but I also had just a lot of challenges, honestly, just around like being seen romantically, like receiving romantic attention. And so I found myself as a young lawyer, like, okay, I really want relationships. I really want a boyfriend, but like I do not know how to make that happen. And so long before I knew that, like dating coaching or relationship coaching was a thing because this was a million years ago because I'm middle aged. I was like, okay, well, I just got to figure this out. And so I started on this journey of teaching myself how to date. And so I went on Match.com, back in the day when that was like, you prayed that nobody saw you. Like, this is way before dating apps. And I went on a bunch of dates and I learned a lot of things. And then I was like, oh, okay, wait, now I know how to do this. And so I wound up starting a dating advice blog back when I was still a lawyer, just because I saw so many other people struggling with things that I used to struggle with. And then I wound up finding out about matchmaking as a profession. And I met a woman at a Fourth of July barbecue who told me about Paul C. Brunson, who is a black male matchmaker now, expert. Really, he has a Netflix show also called Cheat, and he's on a bunch of shows. He's like doing a bunch of things now. But at the time, I was like, wait, there's a black male matchmaker. Who is this person? And I want to follow him. And so I started following him, and through him, I learned that there was a matchmaking institute. And I was like, what? There's a matchmaking institute and there was a conference. And I went to this conference and I met all of these people who were just regular people whose job it was to help other people find love. And I was like, what could be more rewarding than that? So I went to matchmaking school and I became a matchmaker, and that was 13
There's
years
a
ago.
matchmaking school?
Yeah.
School of the Hard Knocks.
Okay. The Matchmaking Institute. Ooh, what secrets are in there? Were you what? Okay, I have a couple. I know I'm gonna get to spicy too, but I was just thinking, like, at what point do you feel like, okay, I've got this on lock. Now I'm ready to help others. Like, did you feel like you needed to reach a certain level of relationship success before you could be a matchmaker, or does that even matter?
You know, I didn't feel that way. I mean, when I started matchmaking, I was in a relationship, but it wasn't like I was in my forever partnership. But I really felt like, first of all, I had already match made people, just like that was something that I'd already done. Like one of my best friends, her husband, I introduced her to him. So it was something that I already just naturally like meddled in other people's love lives. So there's kind of the thing about matchmaking is because it is about making introductions, and it's a little bit like, all right, well, there you go. Like, good luck, everybody. It's like I've introduced you now, now I have at it. But actually, that's one of the reasons why over time I switched from matchmaking to coaching is because I realized that with matchmaking, giving people what they say that they want isn't necessarily what they need and isn't necessarily going to actually give them the relationship that they actually want. And so that actually caused me to start to go a lot deeper into like, okay, well, how do you actually determine what you need in a relationship? And how do you figure out who is and who isn't a good match for you? And how can you break your patterns of maybe being attracted to people and dynamics that don't serve you? And so I became very obsessed with all of that, which is why I became a coach instead of a matchmaker, because I think it's more important for people to be their own matchmaker, honestly, and to be able to do that work for themselves.
Oh, that's a really nice distinction because it's like anyone can get on Match. You can match yourself or what is it now? Tinder, Bumble, all that. But to actually have the coaching and that and not just your girlfriends, at dinner with their own drama, their own trauma, their baggage. But to have someone kind of hold your hand during that whole process. Okay, spicy, Marty. I keep wanting to say spicy margarita, but I'm not going to do that to you.
We can have those too. I'm always down for one of those. My origin story, and snaps to Francesca. I agree with everything that she's saying. My origin story became very young. So at a very young age, 5, 6 years old, single parent home. I felt like I was too good to be in a single parent home. I deserved a daddy. So I made it my mission to go up to every single man and set my mom up and pitch her and I as a package, right? Like, I'm a cute little girl. She's a pretty mom. She knows how to cook. And my mom was married 3 times. My mom saw like my passion for relationships and that it was an obsession for me. And she's like, okay, let me steer this so that you aren't so dependent on a relationship or a partner. But I early on saw the benefits of it, right? When mom was in a relationship, she was happier, she was more giving. I was in trouble less. We had more resources. By resources, I mean toys. And so these men used to go through the process of like taking us both out on dates. And I too saw the benefits of the romance and just how the courtship process looked very early, but then wanted that education with it, which my mom really reinforced. She was like, yes, relationships are great. Go to school though. So went to UC Berkeley, and went for communication, then went to USC in communication as well. And in the interim part, was giving like relationship advice on a radio show, Spicy Tips, and decided that there's a method to this madness in my master's program, and really deep dove into the spicy method, which is SPICY, self, passion, intimacy, communication, and learning to say yes. Those are the ingredients that you need for a healthy relationship. And so juggling, setting up, of course, friends, family members, and clients, really started to focus on the Spicy Life program because that is where it all begins. In order to help you become the best version of yourself and attract your purpose mate, which is the person who's supposed to elevate you, the person who's supposed to support your purpose and how you serve the kingdom and help others, my entire focus became, okay, how do I help you become more magnetic? How do I help you choose the best partner so that you don't have to go through divorce after divorce and you don't have a child who's looking up like, where's my daddy? Why don't I have a 2-parent home? So my mom's theory is that she is the root of the spicy life, spicy mama, and that every couple that I tried to match or set up, or every client that I try to coach, I'm really healing my child self through these couples. but I have gone through all the seasons, all the phases and challenges of relationship. And it wasn't until I actually like applied my tools to like really honed in on, okay, what does it take, that I started to take even my own personal life extremely seriously when it came to relationships, and discovered the strategies within it, that there's coding, there's strategies, dating is a skill, but then also guiding the male psyche is extremely important as well. And so of course, matched myself, my husband will say, well, I never needed a matchmaker. And I'm like, Well, what do you think I was doing, honey? So so it's the whole essence of yes, yes, sir, this was your idea. Of course. I had nothing to do with it. You just wanted me, purely you made this decision on your own. So there is a method to the madness, and I absolutely love it and want every single person to have their purpose mate the way that I do.
A purpose mate.
Hmm.
All right. So I'm thinking about BA Fam, and just for y'all, I know I love BA Fam. I know our audience so well. BA Fam is between 25 to 45. We have very ambitious women. Obviously, it's in the title of our show. We're not waiting for a relationship or a purpose mate to create financial security and financial independence. A lot of our listeners want to create side businesses or have a full business. They're working 9 to 5, and they are very intentional about studying and learning and seeking out wisdom in that sense. Where does that journey align with seeking out a partner? Because I kind of feel like we're in this state right now where it feels like either or. Like, I'm going to focus my all on just creating my own financial security, and then when I have that all together, then I can find a partner. What advice do y'all have for women who are striving for that? And we love that BA Fam passion, but what advice do y'all have for them, and also carving out time to find partnership in the midst of that, before they have it all together?
We think that you have to compartmentalize and separate the two. And you should literally be doing the same way that you invest in your career, you should be investing in your love life, because it's not something that you just look up one day and now you're rich. It's the same thing with love. Okay. So if you're not intentional about juggling both, because I'm not going to say it's about balance, it's about juggling. Like, I'm going to intentionally do one thing a day for my career. I'm also going to intentionally do one thing a day to connect with men, to connect with love. And so whether that's you pouring into a little bit of self-love and juggling that with, okay, do I need to swipe today? Do I need to send that message? Do I need to go to the park and look someone in the eyes and introduce myself? You need to be doing one thing a day to connect, because you literally have to learn in real time managing both. Because if you think that one day you're just going to look up and your partner's going to be there, and you've been so prioritized on your career that now you're going to know how to manage your time to navigate between your masculine at work and your feminine, at home. It is a practice. It is a skill set that you have to do. And as women, we are required to pivot. Okay. Not so much men. They don't lean into their feminine energy usually until we pull that out of them. But for us, society demands it from us. Our relationships demand it from us, that we have to get really good at doing the dance between our masculine and feminine and juggling between those two. And so managing relationship plus career, you've got to do both at the same time, especially if you want both to enjoy at the same time.
That is such a difficult proposition. It's something that I struggle with all the time. We're baddies. Like, we make money. I'm a breadwinner. I done been a breadwinner since day dot of my relationship. Part of me thinks that was a bit of why I was even attracted to my relationship with my partner, is like, there's space for me to be that, there's a lot of power in that. But at the same time, it's like, oh, I done forgot how to be soft. I gotta and what even is feminine energy, Francesca? Does that jive with like your thoughts as well? The idea that, there's this tug of the masculine energy and then the feminine energy in relationships, and like having to learn how to switch it on and off?
This is such a good question. And this is a really important conversation because we all three work with ambitious women who are about their business and about, living their best lives. And I think that I completely agree with you, Madi. Like, we can't compartmentalize love and think like, okay, I'm just going to keep it in this little bucket, and when everything else in my life is perfect, that's when I'm going to open myself up to it. I think that's really missing the point. I think that we are all on a love journey, and the purpose of this journey is for us to learn how to be more loving, how to give more love, and how to receive more love. And what I see a lot with women who are in that mindset of like, no, I'm building my career, I'm focused on my business. It's like, yeah, but you're also it's a little bit like saying like, I'm going to care about my health when I'm more successful, or I'm going to care about my friendships or my family relationships when I'm more successful. Like, what do you mean? No, like, this is all important, right? And so I 100% agree with what Marty was saying about like, this is being about skills, right? So if you are not practicing the skill of being vulnerable, of allowing yourself to receive romantic attention, of having the confidence to give that attention to someone else, right? If you don't have the skill of communication, of learning how to be a great partner, because that's the thing about dating. And one of the reasons why I really I resonate so much more with coaching than with matchmaking is because the point of dating is not just to meet someone. I mean, that's yes, but also for you to actually learn the skills to be a great partner, right? So if you just don't ever put any work or effort or thought into what that means for you, and then you think that when somebody great shows up, that suddenly it's all going to magically work out, that's that fantasy view of love that we've been sold our whole lives. But that sets so many people up for failure in relationships because then you're in a relationship, now you're triggered, now you don't know how to communicate, now you don't know how to compromise, now you don't know how to have boundaries. I think, that's another thing. I think for a lot of, women who feel like I have to wait, is because they think that being in a relationship means that you lose yourself. They think that being in a relationship means that you don't get to still prioritize your passions, right? They think that being in a relationship means that now that there is no time to work on your business or that, but who said that, right? And so I think we as modern women, we have more power and freedom than any other generation in history to have the lives that we want. And that includes the love that we want. So I am a very big believer, like, even if you're like, okay, in this season of my life, because we all have to know ourselves and you'll have to know like, okay, like right now I am doing this thing and this is my focus. And maybe that's not dating. Maybe that's not meeting someone. That's fine. But I encourage people, like, don't get so far away from that intention for a romantic partnership that you then aren't planting the seeds within yourself so that you can actually have the love that you want. And so I just think that more women need to balance it. So as for like the masculine, feminine, I think that could be a very helpful framework for some women to think about, like, okay, where am I able to be more giving? Where am I able to receive? Because actually receiving is like really the big thing, right? We tend to have a lot more trouble receiving than giving. So that's the other thing.
Do you meet women of color, like Black women, or just women in general?
I think women in general. I think especially in relationships, because if you just think about all of the narratives that women get about what the role is of a woman in a relationship, it's like, you gotta take care of your man. You gotta like be, sexually available to him all the time. You gotta make sure he's fed. You gotta make sure he's happy. You gotta make sure that he feels like a man. And because if he doesn't do that, he's gonna go find somebody else who does. Like, there's a lot of pressure that's put on women to do and to, to really be the caretaker in our relationships. And it's not that we aren't that, but we also deserve to receive, right? And so that balance is something that I think we have more power than ever to really navigate for ourselves. But yeah, it's complicated. And one last thing I will just say, the reason I don't really, in my work, I don't really use like masculine and feminine energy so much, only because I see how that can lead to a lot of performance, because then it's like, oh, well, I say this because that's like me being feminine. And it's like, well, but actually, can't you just tap into yourself and just be yourself and be balanced in your ability to give and to receive versus feel like I have to perform femininity in this particular way or a man has to perform masculinity in this particular way? I think that can get a little murky.
While you're talking, I'm also thinking about how I have said on the show before, and I've spoken to so many really accomplished women who've earned millions and they've IPO'd, and they'll come on this show and you'll see like a softening of them because obviously, like, I am a woman of color. This is our safe space. And how I've encouraged women to even bring their feminine energy to the workplace and like to give yourself permission, like to be, and when I say feminine energy, I mean our nurturing nature, our communication skills, our listening. I think that those traits, there was a time when those traits were like out of fashion and looked down upon in corporate spaces. And you wanted to really like be in your masculine because that was the norm. And I love the idea of more women in positions of power embracing that part of, because I think it makes us such good leaders and makes the workplaces that we run, such incredible places to be where you really, everyone can be happier and thrive. But I feel like because of the stigma against, femininity and being soft in the workplace, that has created like we put on this persona when we go into the workplace, and that can be hard sometimes to turn off. But if we just like give ourselves permission to be a bit more soft and be our nurturing, our nature. Not everyone is the same, right? But to tap into our core essential self, both at work and at home, we may find a bit more happiness and just more peace, not as many problems.
Let me add on to this. I do think that based on everyone, right? Growing up in different environments, already being genetically predisposed to certain responses, learning different communication skills, that us as women in the dating place do need to understand visually and also emotionally and mentally, right? When we are tapping into a certain way of making somebody else feel, how they're experiencing us. And I think that masculine and feminine energy is a great way to understand not just who you are and how you show up, or maybe what you were exposed to and who you would like to become, but also understanding how to dance with men. Understanding that when he shows up like this, I respond this way. And I like that. Or when I lean into this energy, it doesn't get me the goal accomplished that I want. And so I think that for my main clientele, which is like the extremely powerful woman who has everything that she wants in life, except for the love, it's important that they also understand that in relationship and in your romantic life, dating is important and relationships are important, because just like in the workplace, you're going to have to ask for what you want. At home, when it comes to men, you are still going to have to ask for what you want, because they don't lean into their feminine energy as much. So they're not intuitive. Okay. They aren't thinking about how can they care for us all day long and how they can make our day better from the moment that they wake up, where that may come naturally to us, but we have to also get into the practice of asking, how am I going to guide this person to learn the things that I want and for it to come effortlessly to them if I'm not communicating my needs, and getting real comfortable with communicating my needs, right? Getting in the habit and practice of getting what I want, because it doesn't just come automatically for somebody else to serve us. And so when you're in a space where you are very goal oriented and driven, and it's about work, and career, while I love all the accolades, you aren't in the habit of advocating for yourself when it comes to relationship and teaching and guiding someone. When you're focused on just your career, you get permission to just be selfish. But when you are in relationship, you actually are required to serve. Both of you guys are required to serve. But how do I get him to submit to me? What does that look like? How do I tap into that energy? And if you don't guide a man's emotions, you have no power over the man, because he is in the relationship with you based on how you make him feel about himself. So if you don't know how to motivate him, if you haven't practiced the skill set of understanding how to guide a man's energy, but that's what you want, and you say that's your focus, but you haven't practiced that, it's going to be extremely challenging later when you add another element, let's say family, to the mix.
Are you saying that our part of a healthy dynamic in relationship is understanding how to like manage your man's emotions, your partner's emotions?
1000%. How do I manage my energy first? How do I manage their energy second? So whether it's a friendship, whether it's your mama, whether it's your child, whether it's your man, how do I manage my energy in this moment so I can guide your energy to get whatever it is accomplished that I'm trying to get? Whether it's I want affection, whether I want a hot date, whether I want you to step up to the plate, be more protective of me, whatever that thing is, whether I want you to throw the trash. How do I manage my energy first so then I can manage your energy next?
I think, okay, I'm understanding that. It reminds me of that book, Come As You Are by Emily Nagasaki. I think that's her name. Really cool book. And in that, she talks about like the brake and the accelerator in a woman versus a man, or partner versus partner, and how there's certain ways you can come at a person, but if they haven't been like, if they're in a mindset or in an emotion mind where they're not ready to do the thing that you want them to do. Like, let's say it's sex, or let's say it's taking out the trash. Those are two very different things. One of them is foreplay, taking out the trash.
I was going to say, are they so different?
I'm going to turn the compost for you. Ooh, baby, like talk dirty to me. But there is this idea that I just can't come in and be like, I need you to do better at this. I need you to I need you to read with our son at night. I need you to be involved more. By the way, I need you to rub my back later and not complain about it. I need you to know what my coffee order is when it's hot outside versus when it's cold and versus when it's raining, because they're different for all the environments. It's about not expecting that to just happen on demand, but there's things that I can start doing the minute I wake up to manage, I don't like the word manage as much, but I understand it, to guide the feeling in him to where he's going to be more conducive to doing those things later. And if it comes from both ways, both directions, if he's also thinking about me and how I'm feeling, baby, that to me just sounds like that's the vibe I want to be on. We are not on that vibe right now, but I would like to get there.
to your point, we are all trapped in this illusion of how it's supposed to feel. Well, it doesn't feel romantic and it doesn't feel authentic if he doesn't just do it on his own naturally. We think that if I have to tell you what I want for my birthday, it's not as meaningful and special. I care more about the goal. Did I get the bag? Okay, because if I got the bag and I had to tell you and send you the link to the bag that I wanted because you weren't going to get the YSL bag that I wanted, am I still happy at the end? We can't be so much trapped in the process of, well, what is the experience that I'm having in order to get my goal achieved? I need you to get to A to Z because I got a business to run. So either we're going to make me happy and I'm going to be in charge of my happiness and help facilitate you being a part of it, but I'm not going to leave my entire happiness and experience up to you. And that actually takes practice because that's not what we were taught. We were taught that it's not love unless the person isn't obsessed with us 24/7 thinking how they can make our day better.
So I totally agree. I hear what both of you are saying. I'm a little bit different. And also, I should say, I do not have children. And I think that the both of you in your relationships, you're not just navigating being with your partner, you're also navigating raising children. And that's a whole other ball of wax. I am a believer in communicating needs. However, I'm also, for me, I'm more focused on, are you with somebody? Because I personally am like, I don't have the emotional bandwidth to just like teach a man how to like have feelings. Like, I'm like, that's not my job. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to take that on.
Out of curiosity, who was supposed to teach him? Out of curiosity.
Well, we'll see. I think, and you know, you said this before, I think everybody has different, you know, we all have different, you know, backgrounds and experiences, and, you know, and I'm very fortunate because I had a father he was a caretaker and he was protective and he worked hard and he supported his family, but he also called my mother beautiful and rubbed her feet and mopped the whole and vacuumed the whole house every weekend so she didn't have to do that heavy lifting. And I also had my older brother, you know, was also like very protective, very loving. So to me, I'm like, just find a man.
Men should just come like that. You think men should just come like that? I think that
like
all
that.
of us feel like men should just come like that. That's the thing, though, is that but we all want one. So it's a small percentage that are actually like your father in the sense of maybe emotionally available to their children, right? Maybe teaching their son how to love properly. And so I am of the belief that, well, you want a relationship with this person, but maybe he didn't grow up with Francesca's father. How are we going to make this work? And there is going to have to be some work on our end that us as women, we're like, well, we don't want to do it. We just want him to come prepackaged. But we're also not prepackaged in maybe the communication aspect or in maybe the, respect aspect. We're all working on something.
Yes,
I
we
think
are.
though that we have a huge population of men though that are only as good as their exes taught them. Okay. So if they did grow up like you, oh my God, that's a blessing, but a lot did not, right? So that population that did not, what are we to do with them? And if we still want relationship with them, because we're still going to be in a situationship or we're still going to hook up with what are we going to do in order to guide them there to that emotional availability, to that intelligence? How are we going to educate them on how to show up in love for us? Because it's really the woman who brings it out of them. Men are not going to, the homies are not going to help them so much become these vulnerable creatures for us. And if their exes did not train them properly, now you have a man in your hands who, you're attracted to, but he doesn't know how to serve you the way that you want to be served. And so it's not so much about, us only getting that population of 20% that are emotionally available. It's like, okay, well, how do we change this as a culture? How do we change and guide these men? Because we're not going to see, I don't think before our days end, the shift of 100% equality, the shift of them being as equal emotionally to us as we are. So it's going to be some work on our end. It's going to be some work on our end.
No, I agree. And there is no perfection. And even if you have two people who are so open and emotionally available and mature, like there's still going to be, the art of relationships is communication, right? So there's always going to be that navigation. But I guess what I see is especially a lot of Black women, I see a lot of women who they are giving their all to men who are so incapable
Incapable.
of being the kind of partner that they deserve,
Correct.
that I just want to be careful. Like, I don't want to say, well, just hang in there, girl. You just got to teach them. Because I'm like,
I see
no, you
that.
actually just need to find somebody who's like, you're dope. I'm ready to show up for you.
Yeah.
Right. I'm excited about moving things forward with you. I see how amazing you are. I mean, even going back to the whole like career thing, I mean, my previous relationship, that was 7 years long, and the relationship that I'm in now, which is relatively new actually, because I had a very eventful year last year while I was writing. um, but I feel like, I could not have built my business if I didn't have my partner. Because and it just because of the support and just of the love and just knowing like I have this safe space that I can go, and I can, I had this book that just came out, and I just had this meltdown recently with my boyfriend because I was like, I'm working so hard, and I
Yeah.
just like cried for like 2 hours, and he just like held me and encouraged me and like told me how, and I'm like, that's just, there are men who do that, right? And so I want women to not feel like I have to just always be trying to pull out of somebody
Yeah.
like his ability to like love me and to show me support, because there are men who will do that. And I think ultimately this comes down to, what is our relationship with ourselves?
Yep.
And what is our actual belief in our deservingness of having somebody who takes care of you, who shows up for you, right?
One
Who
thousand
loves you for
percent.
who you are, who, even if he's not perfect, because nobody is, even if he's not perfect, like he still is trying, like he wants to do better, right? And I just think so many women they just spend so much of their precious
I agree with
time,
you.
emotion, energy,
I agree with you.
trying to get somebody to do better, who's like, that's not,
They're a
you want him
scumbag.
to do better, but he's got
Yeah.
to want to do better too.
To your point, Francesca, because I 1000% agree with it. We will stay longer than we should. We will waste time, but that's why I think that we should be testing for it, right? If you don't have the practice of understanding how to guide him, does he respond to my guidance? If this person isn't guidable, I need to get out.
I wanted to make, and I'm so glad you made that connection, because I was sitting and I'm like, yes, I think there's such great points, but it's about the timing. It's like you need to demonstrate in the first few months to a year of dating me
Yep.
that you are willing to learn, grow, be influenced, change, give me what I need. You're figuring out what someone needs, and maybe you didn't grow up in a household where the man mopped the floors or carried a lot of some of the emotional weight of managing relationships in the family and all that. But are you willing to learn? Are you willing to push yourself in that direction? And I think you can figure that out early when you're dating and then you're building that relationship. And I think there's signs that we miss, that we ignore.
I think that that's what we have to understand as women. I trained with the Gottmans, and one of the things that they speak highly on is a woman's power of influence. If a man cannot be influenced by her, she has no power. And so that's where we need to wake up.
And I agree. And I think when it comes to dating, the way that I talk about this is like, you want to see, and we're being so heteronormative here. So anybody who's like not straight, I see you, and I acknowledge you, and this, everything that I'm saying to me actually applies to everyone, which is when you're dating somebody in early dating, I'm like, if somebody is not in early dating able to like meet you where you are, and that's how I think of it, right? So even take a common scenario, somebody matches with somebody on a dating app, or maybe you meet them in person, and now you're texting buddies, right? And now you're texting, and they're texting you, "Good morning, beautiful. How's your day?" And you have this whole like superficial non-relationship, like this texting relationship. And when people, they'll be like, "Oh, no, he's just like, why does he just keep sending me this?" Like, and I'm like, well, do something about that. Like, don't just respond to those messages every day. Like, say, like, hey, you know what? If you actually like, if you want to get to know me, if you want to move things forward, if you want to get like, let me know. Like, you just put the ball in his court, and that to me is like, okay, who can meet you there? Who can be like, okay, yes, like, I'd love to take you out. What time, when are you available? What is your weekend looking like? Like, that's what I'm looking for. And I want people to like feel empowered to say, like, I don't just have to go along with just how it is or how this other person is behaving. I actually am co-creating this dynamic, because that's the thing. And I think in dating, and Mari, tell me what you think about this. But I think so many people are so focused on, I want somebody who checks all these boxes. and they just are so focused on the other person that they're not actually thinking about what happens when we come together? What are we co-creating together? Because that relationship that the two of you are going to have is its own entity. It's a brand new dynamic. It's never existed before. And if you are from the very beginning just like, well, I'm just going to sit here and hope that they read my mind and hope that they step up. Like, that's not, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You're setting yourself up for not great success in the long term, in my
So,
opinion. What do you think, Molly?
I think that it's extremely important that you always check in with self, right? So so let's start with the first communication piece that you said, right? I don't like the way that this guy is messaging and he hasn't asked me out yet. I know you aren't as heavy as differentiating between the masculine and feminine, but the masculine will say, this is wasting my time. If you're not that into me and you're not taking me out, I gotta go. What I practice is the feminine, which is what is the language that he needs to hear to get what I want. So I really enjoy speaking with you. It is so stimulating. I would love for us to take this to, maybe a FaceTime and potentially see if the energy matches there. Once we establish that, then we can move them to, oh, I really loved this. I would love to see you in person. We had a great connection. It's in the language that we use that makes them feel good about themselves, but also checking in with, well, when I do this, how does he make me feel about me? Do I like how he is responding to me? If I don't like how, because I know I'm coming with it because I have the skill, but if he's not showing up and reinforcing the great juju that I'm giving, then I know it's not a good fit. And then the second element is I'm a huge advocate for something that I created called the pizza. 5 qualities is the crust that you believe makes him a good person. Okay. If these are the 5 core values that you have and his character doesn't align with those 5 core values of the crust, then we can't move on to the sauce, because the sauce is what are the 5 qualities of what I need to feel loved, right? I know how I give love. These are these 5 qualities, but how do I need to experience it from him? What is the treatment? Because if he can't come through with the treatment, I don't care if he checks off all the good person things. Now the treatment is what actually helps you guys to be involved, to do the dance together, to show his interest and his pursuit. And then the last 5 are the toppings. Well, what do I need to be sexually attracted and take my clothes off for him? Because the toppings are always negotiable, right? If he comes with the crust and the sauce, you're gonna want to be naked for him. So what are those things? And I think that we have missed it. I think we're like, well, we need him to earn this, and we need him to be this height, and we need him to, take me out on 10 dates before, there's so much noise out there about relationships and not coming from people like you and I, Francesca, who have studied this, who have practiced this, who have implemented this, who have tested it on clients. And the internet is telling people 20,000 different things about what to do, coming from people who it's not their purpose. It is not their purpose. They are not walking and listening to God's voice when they're giving you that information. They're speaking from wounds. They're speaking from, sometimes, because I'm spiritual, sometimes it's the enemy. They don't want us in healthy relationship. They're just venting. They grabbed a mic and they're venting, but they're not guiding us to love. And that starts from us, from within, the feminine. I'm sorry. We are the masters of love. We are the masters of love. And if we're not tapping into it, then that's also going to have a ricochet effect on our men. But no, we don't stay longer than we should. We test for it all the time.
What are some early relationship green flags for y'all? Like, if you're seeing these things in the beginning, even if he seems like a fixer-upper, because I always equate dating to kind of like looking for investment properties. You're not going to get everything you want in one house, but what's got good bones? What can we work with?
I always test for a problem solver. Whether I'm presenting to you a challenge that I'm having at work, or I need this fixed, or I don't know what I'm going to do about, this flat tire, or I don't, know how to fix this bookshelf. Does he lean in and say, I got you? Okay. Or I'm going to hire someone to do it for you. I prefer him to do it himself. But as long as it gets fixed, a handyman is very attractive because that shows, his ability to build. It shows the masculine. Men are, extreme builders. If he doesn't want to build with me or for me, then he's not going to actually invest in me later. And so to me, if he's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry you experienced that. Like, what are you going to do about, to me, it's the problem solving mode, because I don't want to work that hard. I don't want to live a hard life. I want to live a spicy life. Francesca, what about you?
I definitely agree. I agree with that. Like somebody who is a problem solver, somebody who is proactive generally. So proactive about getting to know you, proactive about spending time with you. I mean, the thing that makes me crazy is when people, and again, I'll just go back to this hetero dynamic that we're talking about. Like when women are like doing all they can to try to get this guy to ask them out again, and I'm like, if there's not the enthusiasm, if there's not the like actual proactive drive of like, yes, I want to spend time with you, I want to get to know you better, I care about what it is that you care about. Like those are the things that I think are really great green flags. And I also think that, people who to have personal responsibility, right? So people who take responsibility for their lives, for their choices, like, so the opposite of that is somebody who's blaming everybody else for all their problems. Is their ex is terrible, everybody's out to get them. The opposite of that, somebody who's like, not that there isn't lots of nonsense that happens in the world, but they are basically just feel empowered enough, like, I actually take responsibility for my actions. Because if you are in a relationship with somebody who does not take responsibility for their actions, you are going to suffer for sure. So I'm really looking for that enthusiasm, that proactivity, and just like, okay, this is a responsible person who actually, because if you think about, like, if you're looking for a life partner, do you want to be with somebody who doesn't know how to pay a bill on time, or, who doesn't know how to, like, say, I'm sorry, and be like, yeah, actually, I messed that up, I need to do better. Like, it's not going to be such a happy relationship. And who cares about you and who's excited about you, right? Because that's the other thing. You don't want somebody to just be with you like, all right, well, you're here. You want somebody...
Do y'all have a favorite dating reality show other than Sneaky Links?
Links.
But do you have one? Because there's Married at First Sight, there's Love is Blind, there's Love Island. Like, do y'all have a show that you kind of watch, like, for funsies that you enjoy?
Love Sneaky Links and Love is Blinds.
You like Love is Blind. Okay.
The concept of not being able to, so it's the concept, right? I love scripted though. Scripted has my heart. But the concept of reality and Love is Blind, of you not being able to see the person and just experience them. To me, that is like, I love that, because I do think that as a society, we judge a book by its cover. And as much as we judge a person based on the toppings, that is not what makes a good husband or wife. At the end of the day, the priorities is how this person makes you feel, how this person helps you, how this person, is aligned with your purpose. While you do want to have sexual attraction, just the concept of that show to me is so moving, because honestly, love is blind on dating apps right now until you actually see the person in person.
I just wish they wouldn't make you put a ring on it. That's where they kill the people in that show.
As production, you got to have that thing at the end that is that, like, final moment of decision,
Yeah. I have a reality dating show concept that I was partnering with a production company, and we were starting to pitch it, and everybody's like, but because it was that like, it's not, you're not at the altar at the end, and they're like, but we need to raise the stakes, they gotta, like, they want that high stakes that marriage at the end. But I'm not a huge fan of these shows, because they tend to, I have watched Love is Blind and it stresses me out. I just find it fascinating how much people project. It's like, yeah, so they're not seeing each other, but the way they say things to each other, like, I'm going to make you happy, you're never going to feel sad or lonely ever again, I'm going to make sure that you never feel, and I'm like, this is not reality. Like, this is not how relationships work. But my favorite of those shows is Love on the Spectrum.
Why do you love Love on the Spectrum so much? What is it about that show? Because I've heard a lot of people, that's like their comfort watch.
Yeah, because it's the purity of it. It's really just like, everybody in the show, like, they don't have any kind of, like, there's no artifice, there's no duplicity. They're so open, they're so transparent, even to the point where, like, they'll be on a date and they're like, I'm starting to feel overwhelmed. Like they'll say that to each other. They'll be like, okay, like, do you want me to, I can stop looking at you, or do you want to go take a walk, or like, and they're like, okay. Like, I'm like, oh. It's like the opposite of how those of us who aren't, on the spectrum, or at least not that far on the spectrum, because we're all on the spectrum somewhat. It's like, it's the opposite of how much of, like, just pretending and, like, I'm going to say this thing, or I'm going to just, like, they just don't do that. They're just totally genuine. They're like,
so you feel connected to their vulnerability and their honesty. Yeah. There is something extremely endearing about that, especially when you're dating in real life, though. Like, the more that we can do that, right, that we can say, hey, this is how I feel. We can test work. Does this person receive it? Right? Like, how does this person handle my feelings? How do they guide me? How do they respond to me? I think we need to do more of that.
There's this fear, there's that show. I wasn't obsessed with the show so much, but the show with Kristen Bell and Homeboy from the OC, where they had, that's another Netflix show. What's it called?
It's called Nobody Wants This.
Oh, she had to marry a Jewish. Was he Jewish?
Yes, yeah, he's a
Okay.
rabbi. Yes,
Yeah, he's a
Nobody
rabbi.
Wants This. Yes.
But there was a part in that show that was going viral. It's when he tells her, "You're not too much for me. Like, you can be messy like this. Like, it's not too much for me." And it was what was so romantic about that, and like to what y'all are speaking about. And as someone who's like, God, I have so many. I think any woman who's like us, who is like very resilient, ambitious, like exciting, like you bring so much light and sparkle to people's lives, there's something underneath that. There's pain, there's trauma, there's like a story there. And I think that, and I'm healing from a lot, and I have been my whole life. And like, sometimes you're afraid to show, or not afraid, but sometimes you worry that if you show all that side to yourself and you show the raw, the yucky, and you show that early, that the other person will be like, oh, that bitch is crazy, or like, that's too much for me. And so that declaration of love, but not love, but just saying like, you can show me these sides of yourself and it's not too much for me. I wish of that kind of love for so many more women. And like, I would love y'all's perspective on whether it's neurodivergency, like if you're someone who's like, I suffer from anxiety and depression, there's a lot about my mental health I didn't know about when I was 24 dating my husband. I didn't know how to like put a label on that. But as soon as I did know, I was like, so here's what we talked about in therapy today. And here's this medication that I'm on. And like, kudos to him, because he was like, okay, this is part of you, I want to learn. But what advice do y'all have in relationships when you are maybe struggling with like some mental health or some conditions that you have, and wanting to open up with your partner, but don't want to be, that you're afraid of rejection is really what it comes down to.
So, one, I love the movie that you mentioned. I love a great rom-com. And I am obsessed with vulnerability and intimacy. So the I in spicy is intimacy. When you are going to share information that's positive or negative, right? That maybe you're afraid of the judgment. I'm a firm believer, and this is going in the book, which you guys are have very much heard about. You test for, can this person handle my vulnerability, right? That's fish and broccoli. When I give you this lighthearted, low stakes information that gives the perception of vulnerability, how do you handle that? Because if you can't handle me telling you about the death of my father and how that affected me, when we keep it light, then you're not going to be able to handle when I tell you that I didn't know him because he was in jail for 12 years. And when I met him, he died from pneumonia because the hepatitis that he contracted in jail had already messed up his lungs. And, his family abandoned. Like, when I get into the steak and potatoes, you're going to run, because you haven't earned that high level of intimacy to show me or prove to me that you can handle the fish and broccoli. So we test for it first. How does this person respond to the light fish and broccoli? And then if they respond well and they are emotionally available or supportive in this interactive intimacy process, then they can move on to steak and potatoes and then hear the real like wounds of my heart. So I do think that there's and behind everything that I do is clearly strategy, but we're tossing and receiving, okay? And then we also test for a second step by saying, okay, I shared with you. Now give it up. You share with me, right? We toss questions back. I just shared about something I experienced with my father. Have you ever lost a loved one, and how did you handle that? If they're not willing to share with you, right? They responded to maybe you said, but then the next test is like, well, will they give it back? Then we're not going to be able to create true intimacy, because if I'm the only one giving vulnerability and you may receive it, but you won't exchange it, we're at a deadlock.
The way I had to claw my husband out of his little cancer shell, I tell you,
He's a cancer?
I'm like, is he all shell? No, me. I'm just like, get the fuck out of there. It makes you feel very lonely when the other person is not coming toward you, and and they think that they're doing the right thing, just being a sounding board, just listening. But it's that sharing, it's like the echoing of, maybe I don't know what you're going through, but here's something that I've gone through. And when you don't have the emotional language, or you're not used to going there and being introspective, it creates loneliness that can be so noxious or like almost like a cancer that kind of spreads. And it,
think it's worse than being single. I mean, if you're in a relationship with
Oh
someone
yeah.
and you don't feel like you have that emotional intimacy, oh my God, that's the loneliest feeling in the world. I think in my definition of true love, which, I really define that as about a relationship and a relationship that has particular qualities. And one of those is emotional intimacy, emotional
Mhm.
intimacy as well as physical intimacy. And I agree with Maudie totally. Like if you're sharing things with somebody and they're just like, that's nice. And they're not giving you, because we all got something, you know, um, and they're not giving you anything in return. That's really not a good sign. But I also will say, I want to call out women a little bit here because there are a lot of women who, even though they say they want an emotionally vulnerable, available man, their ability to actually handle that vulnerability from men is very low. And that is something that a lot of women need to work on and recognize about myself. Like, oh, I liked him, but then he started talking about his dad and this and that, and then I started feeling like, oh God, well, are you gonna cry? Like, I don't want him to cry. Like it's like this, like all this narrative around like, oh, I don't want to see that. Like, I want him to be kind of like have some softness, but I don't want to see that full vulnerability. And I think a lot of women have a tendency to get turned off when a guy is like, quote, too vulnerable and shares a lot of things that may be emotional, that may be difficult. And so I think that women need to check themselves on that and say, like, okay, well, wait, what is it about me that I don't feel like, I see him as less masculine, perhaps? Because he showed me. I mean, this like we're all this whole masculine feminine thing, like we're co-creating this together. And if you are somebody who equates being feminine with being in touch with your emotions and being masculine with being shut off from your emotions, unless it's like anger or lust, basically, what kind of relationship are you actually going to have? So I think it needs to be, yes, you're looking to see who can meet you there, but you're looking to see what is my reaction when somebody else actually does show me that vulnerability? Can I receive it from someone else?
Yeah, I think as a mom of two boys, and I always wanted a girl. I always thought like this will be great. I can have a girl. I can, and this is like my own stuff. I think being a mom and being a parent is so egotistical sometimes. It's like, how can I heal myself through this baby? But I was like, oh, with a girl, I can really teach her how to love herself, and I won't make her feel othered her whole life and all that. But then I didn't have these boys, and I'm like, what are you trying to tell me, Lord? What is it about? What is it about me that what is it that these boys are trying to teach me? And I think in a way, it's like creating emotionally available, emotionally intelligent men who feel safe and who create safe spaces for others for their feelings and who also know how to get in touch with their feelings as well. And I have hope for this generation of young boys. I think that maybe like my husband's generation, like they were getting a little bit, but still have so much work to do. And I feel like this goes back to what you were saying in the beginning, Spicy, about like how we can take some ownership over helping men, reach certain emotional spaces. And I think it starts as children, like in school, in home, how are we cultivating how are we like cultivating this emotional depth and safety in young men and so that they can grow up and again, super heteronormative. But hey, like if we're talking about two men who are in partnership, even all the more better, both two boys who were raised, but like, what are some, like, what would y'all like to see us do for young boys and men to help raise, and sure women too, but men, especially boys especially, to help raise them into incredible partners so that it doesn't become the problem of their future partner to fix and unpack and get down to the broken foundation and fix it for them.
I
Yeah.
think you're right about how we're managing this generation because we have access to information and we're just so much more aware and conscious of our effect because our parents had a huge effect, right? Like all of us are in therapy now because of what our parents did. So we're like, okay, how can we get that therapy bill down for our children? I think it really begins with us in the way that we teach them at a young age intimacy and communication. How do I express how I feel? How do I receive somebody else's feelings? And really having these conversations early on with them, right? So it is very much having them have it with you role playing, but then also witnessing you do it in partnership, right? So I have a pact with my husband when we have a disagreement, we cannot yell, but we can have a disagreement in front of our child. But if we're going to have a disagreement in front of him, he's also going to see the repair. He's also going to hear you apologize to me, or he's also going to hear mommy made a mistake. So that way he is seeing in real time what it looks like for two people who are emotionally charged to then regulate and then also heal in real time their partner through a wound that was just created, right? And so now he's not as disrupted. He's like, whoa, I just saw that dynamic. And then later on, he actually at 3 has circled back to the discussion and been like, Daddy, I don't like the way you talked to mommy earlier. Like holding my dad, like his dad accountable to how he spoke to me. I'm like, yes, son.
That's beautiful. And I think just letting boys have emotions, right? I mean, how many times are boys told by the time they're like 5, like, nope, nope, no tears, like you're a big boy, like they don't want to hear it, you know? And so like letting them cry, being physically affectionate with them, you know? I mean, that's another thing. So often if you see how people, you know, they're affectionate with their daughters, but with their sons, it's like this whole other thing because it's like, no, he's got to be a man and he's got to be hard and he's got to be, you know? And so I think we've reached the end of that. We see how much that's toxic masculinity. The idea that to be masculine means that you don't have softness, you don't have emotion, you don't have vulnerability, that you don't desire affection that's not sexual, because as much as men and people, we all love sex, right? But still, like, if the only time your partner is touching you is because they want to have sex with you, like that doesn't feel great. And just as women, we don't only want to be touched when they're in the mood for sex. Why you think men don't want to be touched? Like you think that they don't care about affection? You think that they don't care about creating those safe spaces for them, you know, to have that intimacy and that vulnerability? So I think that starts very young. I just saw on the other day, somebody pointed this out on social, like when you look at little kids' clothing, all the boys, it's all like sharks and dinosaurs and alligators, it's all predators, right? And the girls, it's like kittens and puppies and bunnies and butterflies, and you know, and so there's this idea again that's just constantly being reinforced through how we are socializing children that then grows up. So if a boy has never had permission to be vulnerable, and that was always something that was shamed or looked down on, then yeah, how do you expect him to then be able to have true emotional intimacy as an adult in a relationship? It's going to be really, really, really hard. And not only do their partners suffer, but they suffer. So how can we start to see like being able to have access to like your full spectrum of emotion and human experience, which is hard. You notice that being a person is not easy.
Girl.
Maybe you've noticed.
It takes every day to hold up this brain. Yes.
Not easy. So how can we like think about how do we equip each other with the tools so that we can navigate it together? Because we're not meant to do life. And when I say we're not meant to do life alone, I don't mean if you're single, that's terrible. I just mean relationships in general, right? Like all of the love in your life has value, your friendships, your family relationships, everything has value. And so, yeah, I think we just need to give all kids, but I think especially boys, we need to make sure that they get that message.
Yes, don't forget about the boys. Don't dismiss boys in your life. Look at them, hug them, squeeze them, love them.
I don't have children, but I do have godsons. I have 4 of them, and I love them so much, and it makes me so happy because they're all grown up. The last one just graduated.
Congrats!
Yeah, thank you. I know. I'm like, my babies. But I love the fact that like they ask me for dating advice. Like when they like somebody, I know who they like. When they're dating somebody, I know. Like, and it makes me so happy. Like,
Yeah.
and they know they're like, okay. They're like, they'll text me. They'll be like, "Can I call you? It's about a girl." And I'm like, yes.
Francesca, you brought up something that I think is super crucial that women, I'm just going to focus on women right now, that women need to understand. When you said relationships, all relationships are important, right? I think that we have this idea that when I get the guy, that becomes the primary focus. And then when I get the kid, that becomes the primary focus, versus being extremely intentional and mindful to pour into all my relationships continuously as much as possible, right? Because like that first year of having the baby, it's extremely hard. But how do I nurture all of my relationships so that I'm not heavily dependent on one to fill my love cup? Right? Because maybe my husband always doesn't have it for me, or maybe my son can't give it to me because he's a daddy's boy, or, you know, what other resources do I have to pour into my love cup so that I can have it filled, so that then I can overflow into the other people in my life versus I'm going to focus on just one person and now I'm, completely drained, or I'm going to, give it all away and now I'm drained. No, no, no. How can these relationships pour back into me as well? I think everything is really about being intentional. And you said like co-creating earlier. Okay, well, how does this person contribute to co-creating what I want my friendships to look like? How does this person contribute to how I want my love life to look? How does this son create, co-create with me on what I want my parenting experience to be? We're not going to knock it out the park and get perfect. But if we're intentional about how we want it to, feel, okay, well, what am I going to do on my end to help us get there, right? Like I can only show up with so much energy. Okay, now you got to give some back. If you're not giving it back, then I got to move on to the next person. So I think it just looks, we have to be very mindful of this. And I think you lose yourself if you do not nurture all the relationships.
Yeah, I think early dating red flag is a man with no friends.
Or a woman
Yeah,
who she
yeah,
can't get along with other
yeah,
women, and we're like
yeah.
easier to get along with. It's like, come on now, girl, we give love, so you can get one woman to love you.
Like, well, I want to be mindful of time too, and I'm thinking of the right way to like put a button on this, because there's obviously we can go on for hours. We've talked about finding true love, and we've talked a lot, honestly, about dynamics of a relationship, almost to the point where it's like it's not so much. I think there's a lot of focus on like where do you meet men and like how do you get, but it's almost like that's not even the whole battle. The battle is once you're in that relationship. If y'all could leave BA fam with some like parting advice and wisdom on nurturing that seed of a relationship that you want to last for the long term, just whether it's daily habits or annual habits, or just what are some things that happy relationships, happy couples are doing that you would say to BA fam, consider doing that as well if you want your relationship to stay nurtured and healthy for the long haul?
I think that making sure that you don't lose yourself is really important. And so what is being asked of you in a season? Like what is love? I mean, this is a question that I ask my clients, and it's in my book, which is like, what is love calling you to learn at this time? And maybe it's calling you to learn, oh, I need to learn to be more vulnerable. Maybe I need to learn to be a little bit more brave and not so fearful of rejection, because knowing that I can handle it. Like if it doesn't work out, I'm going to be okay. Maybe it's developing more self-trust. Maybe it's developing more ability to give to another person, to receive, like whatever it is for you. Maybe it's just like, oh, I actually don't have a lot of confidence. I don't have a lot of confidence to know how to pick the right person, or how to meet people, or how to build relationships. So what you're being called in this season is to learn some skills that are going to serve you in the long term. But I think in long-term relationships, and it's so easy to make it all about your partner, and like, you're not making me happy and you're not doing this. But I think it's really important to just say, okay, well, what am I doing to pour into my relationship with myself? Because that's the blueprint, right? So like, for instance, if you have a habit of being in relationships with people who put you down or who diminish your dreams, like that would only be tolerable to you if that's something that you do within yourself, right? Because I can tell you, if somebody did that to me, I'd be like, you I'd be like, that's hilarious that you think I'm going to be interested in you if you don't support me, right? But it wasn't always that case. It wasn't always that way. But I have done enough of understanding of like, okay, how do I start to treat myself with love so I can normalize within myself what I want to experience with other people. And so I think that's really ultimately, we are the center of our lives, and we are our own portal and conduit of all of the love that we're going to experience. So if we lose sight of that and we make it all about other people, then we're putting way too much pressure on our relationships, and we're also missing the point, which is about like your growth in love. So I don't know if that answers the question, but
It did.
That was a beautiful answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. It starts within. I wish. I mean, it's hard because you're in relationships. You're meeting your match. You're 20s. I was 24. Biological clock is ticking. Sometimes my journey to self love probably didn't really heat up until I was like 32. So like, and so you're trying to catch up sometimes with you catching up to loving yourself. And then it's like, wait, now I've cultivated these relationships that aren't in alignment with that. And so then that journey is its whole thing. But that's such a word. And I hope, anyone who's listening, is never too late to really just like love yourself and learn more about yourself and put that time into it. So
and the 20s are so hard. Oh God, nobody tells you how hard the 20s are.
I
Ooh.
love the 20s. I love the 20s. The 20s
Oh
were
God,
awesome.
you couldn't pay me to go back.
The 20s were a time. Learned so much during my 20s. If I were to leave folks with some advice, my spicy tip would be learn to fall in love with what's good for you. Learn to eat your vegetables. I think that we are addicted to candy. Okay. I think that we're addicted to junk food. And if you don't learn to love what's good for you, right? That is, what is it that I need versus, well, this is what I want, right? Just like with the diet, what does my body need? What is the nutrition that I need to be digesting right now versus what do I want that tastes good? Because later on, we have, let's say, eating remorse or eating regret, right? I shouldn't have ate that slice of cake. I knew that cake was gonna, be not good for me, and I did it anyways. And it's the same thing when it comes to relationships and dating. Like, the red flags were there. You decided to still devour him anyways, knowing that this person is not good for you and it's bringing out the worst in you. And so I think that when we develop a healthy relationship with ourselves, we will also be able to be more selective and see it more clearly in our decision making with others, who is good for us and who is not. But first we have to fall in love with what is good for us. And we need to be very intentional about that. So, I relate it to a SWOT. I give a SWOT. What are my strengths in relationship and how do I show up? What are my weaknesses? What do I suck at? What are my wounds? What are my opportunities for growth? If I do this thing, if I pour into this area more, how will I develop in partnership and be more lovable to self, therefore lovable to others? And then what is the threat if I don't? Am I going to end up alone for the rest of my life? Am I going to continue to date scumbags? Am I, just going to go get inseminated? Whatever the thing is, what is the outcome? What is the threat if I don't do this? If I don't start falling in love with what's good for me? And so I think that is where we begin. Or my 90-day program, The Spicy Life. Start there. I can help you guys with this as well.
Okay, now drop your, what are we promoting?
We're promoting Sneaky Links on Netflix, Sneaky Links on Netflix, and my 90-day program, the Spicy Life program. So it really is a 90-day program where I teach you about self-passion, intimacy, communication, and learning to say yes. So I've kidnapped you for 90 days. We're doing weekly coaching sessions. There's an entire curriculum where I'm teaching you the method, the skill set, and the formulas around not just manifesting love, but really being intentional about partnering with your purpose mate. And a lot of that is around the psychology and behavioral science and emotional guidance to partnership, because we aren't educated in that area. We have done all the work to become successful, to pursue our careers. If we put that amount of intentional education and energy around relationship, oh my God, this would be a different world, right? This would be a completely different world. So the Spicy Life 90-day program, and then my podcast, The Spicy Life.
Where's the best place? You have a website for all this?
Yeah, thespicylife.com.
Now, did you have to buy that domain? I bet there was some raunchy stuff.
I bought the domain. Surprisingly, it was available. I'm like, and guess it was available, and I was like, oh, this is meant to be. It's a sign. It's meant to be.
Okay, spicylife.com. Put that in the show notes, BA fam. And what about you, Miss Francesca?
Well, I have my new book, How to Find True Love, available wherever you get your books or your audiobooks. I mean, for me, I also have a podcast. It's called Dear Franny. I have a course, a 30-day course. It's called How to Date with Intention. And it's really just a way to do some of the pre-work before you're even focusing on, I want to meet someone. But like everything you just said, Marty, like, we have to learn how to fall in love with what is good for us, right? And so a lot of the work that I do is around that and helping people to break patterns and to grow in ways that they are attracted to something different than what they have been in the past, because your attractions do change as you grow. And yeah, so I've got, lots of different things. I'm doing live events, teaching people about flirting, which is something we haven't talked about, but I'm really passionate about that. It solves a lot of dating problems when people get good at flirting, and can effectively do that. So I don't know when this podcast is coming out. I do have a program coming out in August. It's called Romantic Activation. And that's really for people who feel just kind of like stuck and dormant, and like they don't feel love confident, they don't feel sexy, they don't feel connected to their mojo. And yeah, we're gonna get you there.
Okay, and when's that activation happening?
So it actually starts in like a week.
Well, that's fine. You'll do more, BA fam.
I will do more.
Well, I am just so grateful. And BA fam, you don't even know, this is our second try at this episode. We done had so many technical issues of how, I don't even know what happened. It was something, but I'm so grateful we got to chat more, getting to know y'all one on one. I hope y'all collab because I think y'all just are,
Well, Francesca already responded to some emails for me. I've been picking this girl's brain. Yes, she's guiding me. She is giving me all the like, she's a girl's girl, and like I sent her email. I was like, I really appreciate this. Like and you too, Manzi. Both of you guys gave me some gems on how to get a book published. So I'm so grateful for you guys. Like you two are a manifestation of the love that we want to spread, right? And so I really appreciate your guys of even being trusting and vulnerable with me. So thank you, ladies, so much, because I was like, oh my God, you guys are such a resource. Thank you.
oh, likewise. Yeah. And if there's ever anything I can do,
Yes, you helped me with my brown ambition.
can't wait for that book to be coming out. All right, BA fam, please check the show notes. You can find out how to connect with Spicy Mari and Francesca, get all their things, sign up for all their programs. We'll keep you tuned. And please, feedback is welcome. If y'all want more relationship content from Brown Ambition, let me know. Slide into my DMs. I'm at Brown Ambition Podcast on IG, or you can email me directly, brownambitionpodcast@gmail.com. And until next time, we will see you later, BA fam. Bye.